Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Coffee, Kegs, and Kriegsspiel. It is your host once again, James. It is Wednesday at midnight for me. I meant to do this on Sunday and forgot, and then kept forgetting until now. I don't expect to have an audience as it is the Kriegsspiel witching hour. Most of the American. Oh, Chief's here. What the heck? Um, Everyone but Chief's in bed, and Levi Adams apparently. All the Europeans are mostly still asleep, and Magruder's here too. If you guys want to talk, feel free to raise your hands. We can have a conversation. Love to hear your thoughts. But most people are asleep and not active, so I'm not expecting a lot of audience, but it'd be fun if there are a few. Today, we're going to answer questions posted by Heiko Möller. I'm probably butchering that entirely. It's the O with the double dot thing on top of it. I don't know how to pronounce that. Mueller, maybe, Möller, I don't know. Heiko, we'll go by first name. He posted 3 different questions, and I thought they were good questions and be fun to talk about. I'm not showing my face. I'm not as brave as Marshall to show you what I look like, especially at midnight. So instead, you get to look at my map in progress for the upcoming Star Wars game. I'm gonna do a unashamed advertisement on May the 4th. I'm gonna host a Battle of Scarif, which will feature a simultaneous space and ground battle. Probably never before been done in Kriegsspiel, where well, okay, it's kind of been done. For example, at Waterloo, they were on 2 entirely different maps and 2 different TTS workshops at the same time. So the same idea. We're gonna have one map, one game battle map in space, and one on the ground, and the 2 will influence each other. And I'm excited about it. I'm not done yet. But this is the map in progress. I'm pretty happy with how it's looking so far. I still have a ton of work to do on trees. You can see I've done not even half yet, but I'm getting there. And then I got to get the ships and all the places for the soldiers to hide behind. But it's coming together nicely. I'm really happy with. I've got this big, so you can see behind the scenes. So I got this big table that can go 12 feet by 12 feet. And I've found this water, I don't know, model that's super cool. It's got 11 states. You can actually turn it into lava. But if you look at it up close, it's moving, and so it gives really realistic look for water. You can resize it so you can turn it into a river or whatever. In this case, it's kind of a lagoonish ocean, so a nice light blue. Um, but you can change it. So it looks super good. And then I've got my sandy islands, and now I'm putting trees on, and I'm pretty happy with how it's looking. So you can look at that while I talk. Let's see. Let me go. Oh, let's see who's stuck around in the audience. Oh, Chief's still here. You want to talk, Chief? I'm gonna. How do I click on you? How do I promote you? Do you gotta ask to be promoted? Invite to speak. There you go. All right. If you want to speak, you can speak and join me. So, what are the questions that Heiko asked? We're not here to talk about my map, just the questions. We can just look at it as I talk. All right. So, first question: what to do when Kriegsspiel is terrible for various reasons? And I think this is as a player. So, he mentions some examples like scale is off by a factor of 10. Visibility is almost 0. Troops function in crazy and non-historical ways. The team's apathetic, or not taking it serious, or maybe too serious about it. The CIC doesn't do any planning and then goes AWOL, etc. And his question is: should you endure? Should you quit by leaving? Quit by not giving a crap about it anymore, or do suicide by charge? Talk to the umpire. It's a very good question because there are games that are like that that you think are going to be fun and just turn out not to be fun for you as a player. I've been in a few even recently. I won't mention what games they were, but so yeah, what do you do about that situation? If it's the game design itself, if it's just not very well done, I would recommend the first thing to do is very gently talk to the umpire about what you think could be improved. Um, I say gently because players always have opinions about how things could be better. And as an umpire, it can be annoying for players to say, "Oh, you should do it this way because it'll be better." Um, Especially if it's someone who hasn't umpired before and really doesn't know how hard it is. Um, so always you can gently suggest, and if they're a good umpire, they'll take it into account and try to do something about it. Um, but you shouldn't expect it to change. If it's something about how they're running the game or doing it, it's not likely to change. Um, so what do you do at that point? I I I'm not a fan of quitting. I think when you start a game, you are contracting. It's kind of like a handshake between you and the umpire that both of you are going to stick it out until the end. And for that reason, I hate it when umpires quit as well or have to cancel it because they're making a. Obviously, they're doing it for free. Life happens. Well, usually doing it for free. Life happens. What they thought they could handle, they can't, and that's usually what happens when umpires end up canceling games. It just becomes too much, way more work than they realized. Um, Sorry, I lost my train of thought. But really, neither the umpire should nor the player should be willing to quit quickly. Um, so, what do you do in that situation? I mean, you can quit. I don't think you should. So, for example, in the game that I was in that I didn't think was very fun, was not very well handled, the first thing I did was make a few suggestions to the umpire of, hey, you could do this and that and might help things. They said thank you and then didn't change anything. That's fine. Um, and then at that point, what I did, I'm not saying this is the right answer, but what I did is basically stopped caring and gave the minimal amount of effort on my part. I didn't want to quit for the reasons I stated before, but it wasn't fun for me, and so I wasn't going to put a lot of work into it. I was bare minimum. I even tried to get myself killed in some charges, which didn't work out. Um, oh, there's Chief.
Sorry, I had to laugh.
That's all
Keep
right.
going, sorry.
Um, and so yeah, so I bare minimum effort, and that's what I did in that situation. I think it kind of depends. Um, if it's something about your team or teammates, that's a little bit different. You can have a good game and just have a really bad team, or especially if you have a bad CIC, that can make it miserable. Um, and so in that case, talk to your team. Maybe even talk to the umpire about it if they're too serious or not serious enough, or the CIC is not doing a good job. Like if the CIC is not, if the CIC didn't plan well or went AWOL or whatever, take over as CIC. Like don't if the team's floundering, like and the person who's supposed to be leading isn't, take over and take charge. If the game Sometimes the games can be bad and you can make them fun in their own way. There's players that I have regularly in my games that they make little fun goals for themselves. I'm particularly thinking of Desert Fox. He always seems to have random goals, like trying to capture or burn certain wagons. There's a game where he was a courier I don't know if this was his goal, but he was trying to figure out how much of a command he could take over. By the end of the game, I think he was controlling a brigade a brigade. As a courier, he just kept taking over. It's kind of funny to watch, but you can set kind of side things just to make it fun for yourself if other things aren't making it fun. Chief, since you're here, do you have any thoughts to share?
Um, I don't think I've ever quit a game halfway through, at least as a player. I've ended one or two games a little early as an umpire for different reasons. But um, as always, I think you should try to, like you said, it is sort of like a contractual obligation. Sometimes, we do get really excited and we want to join a game, but before you join the game, you should, generally speaking, try to, you know, do I have the time for this? And, do I think if I get squeezed for time in the future, can I still commit the requisite time to the game? But I mean, the only recent examples I can think of have been me quitting some of your live games, but like the day before.
That's
But
that's a little bit different, though.
yeah.
Yeah, that's true. One thing that can help is, or that you can do rather than quitting the game, try to get someone else. A lot of our games have two ICs now, which is a really great feature, which means you're kind of sharing the responsibility with someone else. But uh, maybe you don't quit the game, but you can get someone else to join, and you can do it together, taking turns, or maybe you let them take the reins and you're just kind of backup support. That way you're still there and not haven't quitted, but you're not having to invest so much energy into a game that you're not enjoying. Um, okay, I think that's enough about that topic. We'll move on to the next one. All right, this one's interesting. So, what he says the dichotomy of very detailed planning and making meaningful decisions during the battle. If done in real life military style, the commanders usually only carry out what was planned before, with zero or maybe one meaningful decision per engagement. That's kind of boring for the subordinates. So, is there too much planning in a Kriegsspiel? Regarding planning, what's the bare minimum? What's too much? What's often overlooked? What's never been planned but should be? How best to organize planning and how to keep focused, how to stay within the time frame, and should it be done in stages or a big huddle? Okay, there's a lot there, and there's kind of two different questions, or I see it two different ways. Um, One is the umpire side, and the other is like the CIC or player side. Um, so let's talk about it from the umpire side first of all. When I attended the Strategicon conference in California a month ago, we actually gave a seminar to a huge audience. There was like at least 1,000 people there. Unfortunately, Damon couldn't capture it all on his camera, so that can never be proven or disproven, but there was a lot of people there. And in front of this giant audience, Marshall and Achilles and Lafondios and I all talked, and I spoke on meaningful decisions and making a Kriegsspiel game fun. And to abbreviate, I'll just say basically what makes a game interesting and exciting is the ability or the opportunity for a player to make meaningful decisions in a game. And a lot of games, live or play by post, actually have very few opportunities for meaningful decisions, which is less fun. And the reason being is, let's say you're a subordinate going into some battle or whatever. Usually your order of battle is handed to you, your route of march is handed to you. Maybe you choose the order of march, but you've got marching orders. You've got to go. Let's say it's just a battle. You got to go somewhere, and once you run into the enemy, usually at that point you form up and then fight. And there's very few decision points. Sometimes you can go off of what your CIC's giving you as orders without having to add anything to it, and that's no fun. So as an umpire, it's your responsibility to create a game that has more decision points for player fun. Um, and if you do that right, then the planning question isn't so much of an issue. I don't think you can plan too much because it's good to plan a lot, and I honestly don't think you could plan too much. Um, but as the famous saying is, no plan survives contact with the enemy. So if the scenario's done right, the teams will have a good plan, but then once they find each other and get into the scenario, they'll find that their plan hasn't perfectly covered the situation, and so they have to be flexible and change. And that's when they make their decisions. And so, as a good scenario designer, as the umpire, you make it so that they couldn't have planned for all contingencies, and there are decisions to be made by the players. Before I move on to the player side of that, do you have any thoughts, Chief?
I guess it's another, like you said, no plan survives contact with the enemy. I think what I've seen a lot of is someone will put or a team, but usually, especially the CIC, of course, will put a lot of time into a plan, a really sound plan, and then turn one or turn two or turn four, it's totally out the window. And then it just sort of becomes a free for all of like turn by turn making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I'm not a practitioner, by which I mean, I'm not like a professional war gamer. I'm not a veteran. I didn't go to, staff war college or something. So I don't know how accurate that is and how true to actual wargaming in a professional setting is. I guess that's maybe something we could ask Jan or um, other practitioners in the server, but that's just sort of my thought on that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Um, so, so the other side of it is, as the CIC, can you plan too much for your subordinates to make it less fun for them, or too little? Um, and to an extent, yes. When I'm the CIC, I try to keep my orders high level, and I think you should. If you're, let's say you're a corps commander, and you're giving orders for specific brigades or regiments, you're doing too much. Um, if you're a corps commander, you're commanding divisional commanders, and your orders should be like, this division attacks here, this division holds this area here, and then it's up to the divisional commanders how they're going to do the specifics of that. And so when I'm the CAC, that's how I typically planned. It's probably, I think in general, I'm probably less detailed than other CICs I've seen, but I like to keep it simple and understandable and high level. That way, you want your subordinates to understand the intent of their orders and what everyone else is doing, so that when things do change, they can alter their own plans still within the framework of what you want to accomplish. Um, so that kind of answers all your questions. I know that you probably had more than that, and maybe you can post them in here on YouTube or in Discord, and we can have a follow up. Or maybe we can do it sometime when you can get on and have some back and forth there. Um, let's see. I'm looking at your other questions just to see if I can answer it. What's often overlooked in planning? It depends on the game. It's kind of hard to say. Sometimes logistics can be reserves, rear guards. Sometimes scouting's overlooked. Using cavalry correctly, I don't know. What's never planned but should be? Not sure. Should planning be done in distinct stages or a big huddle? I think it's easier if you can get together and do it in a huddle, like over a voice channel. That's not always easy with different time zones, so it's often just done over time. Okay, I think that's enough on that topic. Final topic. Well, actually, before we go to that, any further thoughts, Chief?
No.
Okay. All right, last topic. This is a fun one. How do you build a esprit de corps within your combat group or team? What can the CIC do? What can the players do? What are the positive effects of it, or negative if missing? When should the CIC be soft and when should they be hard? How to handle despotic CICs or very inexperienced ones as a player? How can the CIC handle players that don't follow orders, don't like him, have a general problem with authority, or out of their water? Okay, there's actually a lot there in that one too. So one's about building esprit de corps, and then the second one is, I guess, as a CIC, how to be a good CIC. Alright, so first one, how to build a esprit de corps within your team or combat group. First thing I can think of is when you're doing the planning, let everyone be involved. I've seen some games and some CICs where it's more probably realistic in this way as a military format where the big wigs up top make their plans and then hand them down to you, and you have no say in it, and you just have to follow it, and that's realistic and fine. and in some ways kind of fun to get orders that you had no part in because of the realism. But I think to build esprit de corps, it can help if you involve if the umpire allows it and the game design allows it, you involve them in the planning, because it'll get them involved and encourage them to participate. Um, what else can you do? I think, I mean, honestly, the same principles of being a good CIC are the same as just being a leader in general. Um, encourage your team members if they give you an idea, even if you don't accept it. Thank them for their idea. Um, Try to recognize the strengths of the people on your team and use them. Um, what are the positive effects of it? I mean, if you have a good team that's really excited about working together and winning, they're going to stay active in the game throughout. They're going to do well, and it's going to just be more fun. Negative is if you have a dysfunctional team, you get people dropping off, not being active, not putting in the orders or sending dispatches, not following orders. It can be messy. Chief, any thoughts?
Not particularly. No, I think you've done a good job covering it.
Okay. All right. So then on the other side, so as a CIC, I had a couple questions. So when should you be soft and when should you be hard? Um, so we're all doing this for fun. None of us are actually in the military. Um, and so generally we should be kind and soft with each other. Now, me personally, I kind of, maybe this is strange, I enjoy the role play of like a senior commander chewing me out for doing something wrong. It's all over Discord. It's not in person. It doesn't hurt my feelings, and it's kind of fun. Um, and sometimes I don't often do it, but sometimes I do it to subordinates, and I try to let them know that it is role play, and I don't actually hate them. Um, but so you have to be careful about that. But generally speaking, like we're all just here to have fun, so nobody should be overly harsh on anyone else. As a CIC. Now, how do you handle a CIC who's despotic or inexperienced or just bad? That's tricky, because it's really hard when you have a bad CIC. And but it's interesting because it's also realistic for Army Command, where you don't pick your leaders often, all the time, and sometimes or oftentimes, especially when you're talking about like the Civil War or the Napoleonic Wars, your leaders were, soldiers thought they were incompetents, and sometimes they were incompetents, but you still had to follow the orders, and so you get to simulate what that was really like in real life, which is frustrating, but for me kind of fun. So what do you do about that? I think you do what you can do in real life. If you have an idiot CIC, I like to play the game of pretending to follow orders but doing what I think's best, or staying within the boundaries of orders but getting as far to the right side as what I think. Um, if Yeah, just doing what you can to compensate for a bad CIC if you have one. Um, if you don't think, if they need a leg up. I've been in games where the CICs have been really bad, and so I've basically taken over as a sub CIC, um, just trying to help them out. Um, I guess it just depends. It's kind of hard to answer. What do you do as a CIC when players don't follow orders? Let's start with don't follow orders. Um, so I've seen that a lot. I actually just finished turn on a game where it happened. I wasn't the CSC, I'm the umpire, but I saw it, and it's happened to me. People haven't followed my orders, and there's been occasions where I've not followed orders. So I think as the CIC, you have to understand why they didn't follow orders. Sometimes it was because your orders weren't clear. Oftentimes that's why. And so you have to look at yourself first and your orders, because Kriegsspiel is ultimately an exercise in writing good orders. Um, and often players aren't as good at writing as they think they are. So first look at your own orders and make sure there wasn't any confusion in them as to why they weren't followed. Um, and then if they were on disobeyed on purpose, I don't know. Give you can. It's fun to role play, as I mentioned. Chewing out the player. Um, if and again letting them know that it's in the spirit of the game and role play. I've seen CICs relieve players. Like if someone's just not obeying orders, I mean militarily, they're they're going to be relieved of command. And I've seen that done. You you have to handle that carefully because again we're all just here to have fun, and so if a person gets kicked from a game, that's less fun. But also if they chose to disobey your orders, that's kind of on them. Um, so I guess that answers that. Any other comments, Chief?
Um, yeah, I guess I'm sort of, well, I don't want to say notorious, but I'm one of the IKS players who tends to like to lean into the role play and that sort of thing. I've threatened to relieve people before. I've never actually done it as a CIC. In Zeke's Manassas game, a certain someone who will remain unnamed responded to one of my dispatches with the letter K. So I was a little pissed, but I sort of leaned into it and I sent him back. I basically said, if you don't, treat me with the dignity of an officer of the United States, I'll find someone who will. Basically saying, I'll fire you. But it's difficult. I don't think I've seen it happen. I've definitely never had it happen where I had a really bad CIC, but I think using the role play aspect, the historical role play, if it's an historical game, and leaning into that can sort of take the edge off. And I think it also helps you to sort of remember that in the end, it's just a game,
Yeah.
Which can be hard because you invest your time and effort. And then if you get like a crappy teammate or like a really bad CIC who's kind of ruining the game for you, it can be tough. But I guess it's one of the risks associated with the hobby. So
Yep. That reminded me of in Otto's game, which name I can't remember. What I can't remember what he
March
called. March to
March on the
Diaz
Rhine.
or March on the Rhine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's become a bit of a Kriegsspiel
Legend. Yeah.
legend,
Yeah.
where so the leader of the man, it's been a while. The French army um, was Sam Miller, and he was uh, basically committing war crimes,
Yeah. Yeah.
killing prisoners and whatnot. Uh, I think he was the CIC of our army, and it was very interesting. As so, I started as a divisional commander and then got promoted to a corps commander because my corps commander got imprisoned by the CIC. Um, but at one point, what made the game really interesting was he was doing this, and then all of his subordinates were talking about what he's doing and wanting to do, and basically like planning a mutiny, but deciding whether we should do it or not. And it was a lot of fun because we did it in the spirit of the game of okay, yeah, we're French corps commanders. Our leaders committing war crimes. Are we really gonna commit mutiny and perhaps be put to death in the game for it? And so we had a lot of discussion about it and ended up basically doing it. And so we imprisoned our CIC and and then took over. By that time, most of the game was over, so we were in retreat and kind of had to scramble to oversee that retreat. But very interesting game, and so we did it within the spirit of the game and trying to stick to historical realism, and it made it very fun and memorable. So anyway, let's see. Let's talk about okay, if a player doesn't like you as the CIC or have a general problem or authority or out of their water. Um, so let's just talk about players not liking each other. Again, I think that goes back to the realism of what it was like to be in military command, where you have uh, leaders, subordinates, fellow commanders who you don't necessarily agree with or get along with at all, and you've got to win the battle or win the war. You have to get along in some way, um, and so I think it's actually kind of it's frustrating, but it's a feature of the game that you're put in the same situation and you have to deal with it. And that's part of the game is figuring out how to. And so if you have a CIC you don't like or a subordinate you don't like, working around that, figuring it out. It's a skill that is useful in the military as much as it is in real life, where you have coworkers and leaders and managers you might not like, and you still got to work with them. Now it's a bit different, as we keep saying, because it's a game. Nobody's forcing you to be there, and I guess it eventually does reach a point where if it's totally not fun, then don't kill yourself trying to make it work. But have fun trying to figure it out and make it work if you can. If you're a CIC, um, again, go under the role play. Be like, look, we don't have to like each other, but you do have to follow orders, and if you don't, I'll relieve you of command and go from there. Um, your final point: people who are out of their water. So Kriegsspiel, we're constantly growing, having new people. It's great, and so you have all sorts of people with different levels of skill and ability and experience. And so sometimes you get people who are really out of their depth and not you're not doing it well, and you just have to be gentle with them and try to help them out. Hopefully the umpires are helping them out as well. Um, and as a good leader or co-commander, part of being a good leader is recognizing their deficiencies and doing what you can to offset that. Um, so if you know someone's, or if you discover someone's not just struggling with whatever they're trying to do, then it's up to you. Maybe you shift their command so they have less, or doing something different. Um, I do. I mean, as an umpire, I do this all the time because I'm always getting new umpires in my live games, and so I'm watching how they're doing and if they're struggling. And sometimes we're mid game and I see that they're just having a hard time getting orders in and on time or doing screenshots or something, and so I have to change something, take people away from them, or do something different to help them out. And it's not that they're doing bad; they're just not as experienced, and so they need help until they get to that level. Thoughts, Chief?
Uh, Not much from my end because I usually umpire alone. But yeah.
Okay. Well, how about from the previous points, thoughts of dealing with inexperienced players or difficult to work with players or CICs?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's important to just sort of guide people and take the pressure off in ways that you can. Because I mean, we were all new to Kriegsspiel at one point or another, and everyone started at a different level. Like the saying goes, everyone starts somewhere. Everyone was a beginner once. Um, I mean, I guess that's pretty much it. Simple, but it's true.
Yeah. All right. Well, those were all of Heiko's questions. Thank you so much for posting those and creating topics of conversation. Hopefully, for whoever listened to this, besides Chief, it was useful to you and you enjoyed it. And I would encourage you to, if you have any follow up points or questions or thoughts, or if you agree or disagree with me, put it on either YouTube comments or in Discord on the Kriegsspiel Society Discord. And with that, I will bid you guys good night. Thanks for listening in.